My dad loves bird watching. When I was little, we used to wake up early, go outside, admire the birds chirping in the sunrise. My dad taught me many things about nature, one of which is that the northern spotted owl nests primarily in the Pacific yew tree. It was only in my adult life that I appreciated the significance of this tree, since its bark contains Taxol, a compound found to have unique anti-cancer properties. It's especially interesting since BMS marketed this compound for cancer treatment. And while this drug may grow on a tree, most modern drugs do not. And that's where the synthetic chemist comes in. As a process chemist, I work with an awesome team of fellow synthetic chemists, along with analytical chemists and chemical engineers, to develop safe, efficient, and scalable syntheses to produce the active pharmaceutical ingredient in our new medicines. My coworkers and I spend a lot of our time in the labs designing, running, and analyzing experiments. The types of reactions we run, along with the tools and instruments we use, has evolved dramatically in the last few decades. But how much has the way we work in the lab evolved? We started to imagine what the ideal lab might look like in the future. If anything was possible, what would we want? With lab work, it's often the simple things that slow us down. Finding reagents, manually documenting observations, tracking down data we collected weeks or months ago. But what if these barriers were eliminated? What if I could find everything I needed for an experiment with no effort? What if experiments documented themselves? What if data from all my instruments could be found in one place? What if I, as a scientist, could focus exclusively on the science? So, a group of lab-facing scientists got together to work towards that vision. One of my favorite things about this initiative is that it's truly a grassroots effort. No forcing of ideas or projects from those who haven't worn a lab coat in years, but rather a group of bench scientists working to make running experiments as seamless as possible. At the end of the day, scientific innovation is what drives the pharmaceutical industry. And at the heart of every new medicine is a team of scientists working hard in a lab. Our team created the Next Gen Lab Initiative, a series of integrated projects with these principles in mind, and I'll talk to you about a few of them today. So, where to start? How about something that can be time-consuming, but provides no value, like finding things? Chemistry is a bit like cooking, and when I'm cooking at home, I know where everything is. I know where every ingredient, spice, and pan is located. It's not like that in the lab environment. Large numbers of labs are clustered together, and it reminds me more of that 6-bedroom apartment I shared my first year of grad school. Unsure where anything is located, with many cooks sharing ingredients and moving everything to their preferred spot. Ideally, I should be able to quickly and simply find any reagent to run any reaction needed for my project. Currently, we have a barcoded inventory program to track our chemicals, but it's cumbersome and rarely used. And since chemicals move from lab to lab frequently, they can be hard to find. Hence, the time spent finding chemicals often outweighs the cost of buying a new bottle, resulting in more chemicals being ordered that we don't need. And that's a safety concern. So, how do we get to that on-demand state? RFID readers are easy to interact with. That's how your keyless car unlocks. And with wireless communication, they can be located pretty much anywhere. They don't need to be connected to computers, just power. Phase 1 of this pilot demonstrated RFID tags are resistant to our range of storage conditions and potential chemical spills. And they can update the inventory with just a tap of the bottle to the reader. An updated inventory, that's great, and possibly even trivial. But it's the future potential for this project that gets me really excited. As we look to the future of this technology, What if these RFID readers could be connected to the balances we use to weigh out our materials? What if the balance could do more than just weigh the correct amount? What if it also recorded the supplier and lot number of the material and also flagged safety concerns? What if this data is automatically transferred to a data repository? This would not only minimize transcription errors, but would be contemporaneous data that would be captured with minimal effort, fewer mistakes, and better use of our scientists' time. As we look towards the ideal scenario, how can we get to a state where the data from an RFID and a balance automatically populates our electronic notebook? Speaking of the lab notebook, documenting all actions and observations in a lab notebook is a quintessential part of the scientific process. And the evolution from paper to electronic notebooks in the last decade brought a key advantage. The data can be accessed by anyone from anywhere. The sooner it's written down, the more accurate it will be. Which begs the question, in a time when cars begin to drive themselves, why can't experiments begin to write themselves? In that vein, we have been working to implement software that automatically collects process data, such as temperature or pH, but also has key action phrases that allow you to select the operation, such as add reagent. At the end of the experiment, it compiles the data, operations, and timestamp into a readable document of what was actually done. If I can dictate a grocery list to my smartphone, why can't I dictate my actions in the lab? Or, even better, can a camera recognize and record my actions? Although many of these technologies are becoming more and more available, they have not been implemented in the lab environment to date. To which I ask, why not? How can we bring incredible technology into labs to push the boundaries of how we work now and how we could be working in the future? When thinking of experimental plans, something I hear often at BMS is that it's not about how many experiments you run, but how much data you get out of each experiment. We've gotten really good at collecting very comprehensive data sets, which brings me to the last and arguably one of the most important parts of the scientific process, data collation. Drawing data together from various instruments to understand the experiments we ran and the hypotheses we were testing. Just like the post office divides up the mail based on zip codes and addresses, can we use a unique identifier to organize the data from all the instruments based on the scientist and experiment? This effort is ongoing as part of a larger project to enable big data science and build a centralized data repository. In collaboration with IT, we have been looking at taking advantage of data analytics tools such as artificial intelligence and machine learning to better collate and track our data. You can imagine this could be much bigger than just finding the data from one experiment, but rather looking at data and decision-making as a whole across a project or even the portfolio. Looking back holistically across these select projects, we're getting closer to our big dream to create a lab environment where all scientists, regardless of background and department, can work seamlessly in the lab and therefore create more time for innovation. This initiative has numerous projects at different stages of development. Today, we have demonstrated RFID to be suitable for tracking chemicals, evaluating the capabilities of software to write our experimental procedure, and looking at technology solutions to collate experimental data. But the vision is bigger than just RFIDs and new software. It's about unleashing creativity. It's about sparking innovation with no limits. It's about engaging our scientists who are working hard every day to provide medicines for our patients. And as I think back to early morning bird watching with my dad, the northern spotted owl, and how it thrives by nesting in the Pacific yew tree. Similarly, we are looking to make our labs the perfect place for our scientists to thrive. Thank you.